What began as a lighthearted night on The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon quickly turned into one of the most emotional live moments in the program's history. Studio 6B was humming with the familiar energy, the audience ready for laughter and celebrity charisma. Andrew Garfield was on set, promoting his new critically acclaimed film, joking easily with Jimmy and engaging warmly with the cheering audience. The atmosphere was initially casual and bright, a perfect setting for the typical late-night banter. Andrew answered questions with his characteristic thoughtfulness and charm, making the conversation feel intimate and engaging. But halfway through the conversation, something subtle and profound shifted. It was not a sound, but a visual catch, a flicker of light in the crowd that made him stop mid-sentence. In the third row sat a young woman holding a wrapped canvas, clutching it nervously in her lap. She was holding a large, flat, carefully wrapped canvas, clutching it protectively in her lap. Her name was Eleanor Ruiz, a professional painter who had traveled all the way from Chicago specifically for this moment. She hadn't come for autographs, selfies, or to meet a celebrity. Her only mission was to return something that had been lost for over a decade. Andrew's eyes, during a pause in his reply, caught a faint, strange reflection from the tightly wrapped frame. He froze completely. "I'm terribly sorry, Jimmy," he said softly, his voice suddenly thick with confusion. "But that object, that looks exactly like something I painted years ago, something I thought was gone." Eleanor stood slowly in the third row, her hands shaking profoundly. "It is yours, Andrew," she whispered, her voice barely carrying across the vast space. "It's your painting." The laughter and murmuring in the audience fell completely silent. The energy in the studio transformed instantly into focused, quiet awe. Andrew frowned slightly, his face etched with disbelief. "Are you certain?" Eleanor nodded, her conviction firm, and began walking carefully toward the stage, unwrapping the painting she'd carried all this time. A crew member moved with professional speed, but Jimmy quickly waved him away, recognizing the sacred gravity of the moment. The cameras stayed wide, sensing that the truth was about to unfold unscripted. If this story moves you, please subscribe to our channel. We share these powerful moments because they matter, because they remind us that culture and family transcend distance, and because stories like Eleanor's deserve to be heard. Your subscription helps us continue bringing real stories about real courage. When she reached the stage, Eleanor placed the canvas gently on the floor and slowly pulled the final piece of wrapping away. Under the intense studio lights, a haunting, detailed image appeared for the first time in years. It was a half-finished portrait of a woman's kind face, the colors visibly fading near the edges. The brushstrokes were tender, deeply affectionate, yet the image remained profoundly unresolved, incomplete. Eleanor began to explain her impossible journey. "I had originally bought this piece at a very small charity auction in London. The piece had no formal artist listed, only the faintest initials AG scrawled on the back of the canvas. I genuinely didn't know it was yours, Mr. Garfield," she said, looking up at him. But something about the portrait felt intensely alive. It felt like it was patiently waiting for its original painter to come back and finish its story. Andrew's expression changed profoundly, his face twisted into immediate recognition and raw pain. He recognized every specific detail instantly, the precise charcoal lines, the familiar shade of blue used in the eyes, the tragically unfinished corner. He whispered, the sound cracking with raw emotion. "I painted this after my mom passed away suddenly. It was the very last thing I created before I completely stopped painting forever. I thought it had been simply thrown out when I moved apartments." The studio remained utterly silent, the weight of the personal revelation crushing the air. Jimmy Fallon, visibly shaken and emotional, left the safety of his desk and walked to join Andrew and Eleanor near the stage. "You found this after all those years across continents?" he asked softly, his voice barely steady. Eleanor nodded, tears finally starting to form in her eyes. "It was actually my mother who found it first. My mother was a kind hospice nurse in London. She once cared for a retired art collector who owned this painting. When he passed away, my mother couldn't bear to see such a personal, sad piece lost or discarded. She kept it safe, hoping one day to return it to whoever created it. When my mother died unexpectedly, I found it carefully wrapped among her most cherished possessions, and I knew immediately I had to bring it back to you." Andrew blinked hard, tears welling. "Your mom kept it safe," he repeated, the words a form of reverence. "She protected the very last thing I made of mine, the final piece of my artistic connection to her." He knelt, mirroring Eleanor, and traced his fingers gently along the edge of the canvas, touching the old memory. "This was intended to be my mother's final portrait," he said quietly, intimately. "I simply couldn't finish it. It felt too overwhelming, too painful to complete the image without her." Eleanor hesitated, looking at the unresolved brush strokes and the incomplete corner. Then she spoke the vital words. "Maybe, Andrew, it's finished now." The audience collectively exhaled, a loud, audible mix of profound awe and sudden heartbreak. Jimmy wiped his eyes quickly with his sleeve, unable to find the correct, inadequate words for the moment. For several long, silent seconds, there was only the quiet presence of the three people and the single, haunting portrait. Then Andrew turned slowly to face the large crowd and spoke, his voice clear but deeply affected. "You spend your entire life trying to constantly move forward, always chasing the next thing. But sometimes, the only real way to heal and find peace is to humbly look back and see what love, what pure kindness, quietly left behind for you." He looked at Jimmy, his eyes shining with profound clarity. "This painting followed me all the way here, across years and countries. Maybe that's my mom's ultimate way of telling me it's finally safe and it's okay to start painting again." Jimmy placed a firm, warm hand on his shoulder, his voice trembling with genuine emotion. "Eleanor, Andrew, that's the most truly beautiful thing we've ever witnessed on this stage." The camera zoomed in slowly on the painting, now resting on the famous Tonight Show desk. The soft glow of the studio lights reflected gently off the delicate, tragic brush strokes. No music played at all. No one moved. The silence itself became the profound, complete tribute. That night, Andrew Garfield left Studio 6B carrying the painting that had traveled farther than he ever imagined, not just across countries, but across his deepest grief, the vastness of time, and 2 generations of unexpected kindness. The segment instantly went viral globally, not because of celebrity or shock, but because it captured something utterly raw and purely human. It captured the truth that sometimes the most important things we lose have already found their way back to us, patiently waiting for the right moment to be seen again. Andrew carefully cradled the canvas, the weight of the object a comfort rather than a burden. He realized the true value of the painting was not its subject, but the incredible effort Eleanor's mother took to ensure its survival. He understood that the most powerful act of love is often silent and unexpected. Eleanor felt a profound peace, knowing she had honored her own mother's quiet mission to the letter. Her journey from Chicago to New York was not about fame, but about fulfilling a sacred, inherited duty. Jimmy Fallon often recounts the story, citing the unfinished portrait as the pinnacle of unscripted human theater. He says the silence that night was louder than any applause he has ever heard in his career. The crew members, usually cynical, spoke of the moment with reverence, calling the painting the last memory. Andrew later took the canvas home, placing it gently on a stand in his studio. He didn't touch the brush for months, simply sitting with the realization that it was complete as it was. Eleanor's words, "Maybe it's finished now," played in his mind repeatedly. He came to understand that the completion was not the final brushstroke, but the act of acceptance. The portrait represented the moment he stopped fighting the finality of loss and started accepting the legacy of love. He realized his mother's spirit had protected the painting through the kindness of strangers. Andrew Garfield eventually picked up the brush again, but he didn't touch the portrait. Instead, he started a new canvas, filled with lighter colors and renewed hope. He founded a small scholarship in Eleanor's mother's name, dedicated to supporting young artists who use their work to heal. He acknowledged that Eleanor's mother, the nurse, was the true artist of compassion. The segment proved to the world that the deepest connections are often formed by anonymous acts of grace. The unfinished portrait finally found its meaning, not just as a piece of art, but as a circular journey of faith. It had been passed from an artist in pain to a collector, to a nurse who was a stranger, and finally back to the son. Andrew now sees the initials AG not just as his own, but as a representation of his mother's enduring spirit. The painting is permanently finished in its half-done state, a powerful symbol of grace and remembrance. Eleanor and Andrew maintain a quiet, deep friendship, bound by the strange, beautiful fate of the canvas. They are a testament to the fact that vulnerability is often the shortest path to profound human connection. The camera angle that focused on the painting became one of the most iconic images of the show's run. It captured the raw, unpolished moment where Hollywood gloss met real, universal pain. Andrew Garfield's career gained a new, deeper resonance that night. He was no longer just a talented actor, but a man who publicly allowed himself to be healed. The segment taught millions of viewers that closure often comes in forms we least expect, like a painting in a paper wrapping, and that the most powerful thing we can leave behind is an unresolved piece of art that compels others to keep the love alive. The final moments of silence were an offering to every lost mother and every unfinished memory. The unfinished portrait, once a source of deep artistic block, became the key to unlocking Andrew's future. He carried the painting home, knowing its journey was complete. He realized he wasn't just holding a memory, he was holding a gift delivered by 2 generations of compassionate strangers. The true completion was not in the oil paint, but in the final, profound acceptance of love's permanence. The studio lights dimmed, leaving the image of the portrait etched into the minds of everyone present. The silence remained, a tribute more powerful than any applause. The emotional aftermath settled over the audience. Jimmy slowly walked back to his desk, pulling the microphone close. He looked out at the audience, his expression serious, allowing the weight of the moment to settle completely. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice thick with emotion, resonating with unexpected depth. "Tonight we witnessed the power of a promise kept across generations. We saw that sometimes. The greatest treasures are not fame, but the quiet acts of a hospice nurse. And that the art that matters the most is the art that heals." Andrew, having received his memory, nodded quietly. "The painting found its way back to me when I finally needed it," he whispered. "That is the purest definition of fate." The applause finally broke, a soft, respectful sound, not thunderous, but deep and resonant with shared tears. It was the sound of recognition for a sacred truth revealed, a tribute to the quiet moment. Andrew took Eleanor's hand, gripping it firmly, and together they walked slowly off the stage. The unfinished portrait's final message was delivered, seen, and accepted. And in the silence that followed, the studio finally rested, the energy purified by the truth. The story of the canvas became an internal legend at The Tonight Show. The crew members often spoke of the moment the camera zoomed in on the AG initials. They said it was the most perfect cinematic reveal of the show's run. Andrew often tells the story of Eleanor's mother to his friends and family. He uses it to illustrate that emotional honesty and vulnerability are the highest forms of human achievement. Eleanor continued her work as a painter, but now dedicated her spare time to the scholarship founded in her mother's name. She carried the memory of the painting's journey as a reminder that every act of kindness has an echo. The unfinished portrait, once a symbol of pain, became the symbol of Andrew's future art. It finally found its true completion,